Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy. Here. Trustee Katsinas.
Here.
Trustee Milani.
Here.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Reardon.
Here.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Here.
Mayor Pico.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the April 17, 2023 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of April 17th, 2023.
Second. Any comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Approval of the May 1, 2023 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of May 1st, 2023.
Second. Any comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Capital Improvement Plan and 5-year financial plan.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to recommend to the Village Board to adopt a resolution entitled, "A Resolution Adopting the Village of Orland Park 2023 to 2028 Capital Improvement Plan and a 5-year financial plan," and recommend discontinuing the vehicle sticker program immediately.
Second. And George, if you could give us your presentation.
We are having some audio-visual technical difficulties. The screens don't work. So what I will, everything I will do will be via sock puppet from now on.
We'll stop for a few minutes. Can you print out the presentation and at least give it to the board?
It's a great idea.
So we need, I guess we need 8 copies up here. And if you could email one to Trustee Compass, that would be great, so we can at least follow along. And then also when this video is up, because this is a pretty important matter for the village, when the video is done, if you can add those slides to the video, that would be helpful. So you can obviously do that after the fact.
5 minutes then.
Okay, we'll wait. In the meantime, I'll entertain a motion to table this item.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. So this motion is tabled, and we'll move on to Prairie Elementary School.
Prairie Elementary School, 14200 82nd Avenue renovations.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
I move to recommend to the Village Board the Plan Commission recommended action as presented in the staff report regarding case number 2022-1016, also known as Prairie Elementary School renovations.
Second.
Are there any comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Well, hold on one second. Steve, do you have a presentation you'd like to give briefly?
Well, I will. So yeah, this is the first of 6 school renovations or reconstructions that you guys are going to be hearing over the next few meetings. This is an addition to Prairie School. It's a 7,721 square foot addition that accommodates 4 additional classrooms, restrooms, and storage equipment. Since the Crystal Lake South High School case, all public schools are now do need to follow all zoning rules. We do not regulate their building permits, but we do any site improvements or zoning regulations. So this was just they have to get a special use permit. We're only talking about really the outside and then the impact of the use as opposed to the actual floor plans or anything like that.
Okay. Trustee Healy.
Mr. Mayor, I've got some issues with this. It seems like there's been communication with District 135 concerning a census that we've been waiting for months, many months for. And it's caused, I believe it's caused the village some extra cost by not having this and trying to go around things and that for something that should have been provided a long time ago. My personal opinion is that we should table this until we get a response on our request for the census information. So I'd like to make a motion that we table this this motion until we've received a response to our census.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Healy,
Aye.
trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Well, I apologize. First, we need to discuss we need to comment on the tabling, so, before we vote on it. So I will say, our role here is not to weigh in on whether or not the school board has made the right decision or to hold them up because we're waiting on something for another matter. Our role is simply to vote on whether or not this meets our zoning laws and meets our codes. That's all that we are here to do. So while I empathize with Trustee Healy's position on this, I don't think that's our role in this particular meeting. Our role is simply to determine whether or not this should go on to the full board, and again, to approve the zoning matter that's at hand. You know, as much as these other matters may bother us, it's not our role to make that decision because they're a separate board.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Reardon. Oh, Trustee Healy.
Mr. Mayor, I just to point out, I'm not saying no to this. I'm just delaying delaying, most likely approval. And if our, that's just, it may seem like a nothing thing, but, so is giving us the information a nothing thing. So I think it should all be settled out. Once they give us the information, they should have it and send it over to us.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
do we have a status on that? I mean, I know we've been asking for it for a while. Do we have anything recent that we can weigh in? I mean, again, I kind of agree with you that we shouldn't be using apples and oranges to do something that they should be doing anyway, but
We don't have a status on it. We have still been being stonewalled for that information. There's no question about it. And essentially, just to give you the background, District 230 and District 135 entered this demographic study together, and it was done by District 230, but the costs were shared, and we have not received it to this point. So that's where we're at. I guess, my comments on this is, the board certainly has, every right to weigh in on that disappointment. We're residents, right? And the quality of education our children receive, and ensuring that D135, which is the highest part of our tax bill, does that in a fiscally responsible way is pretty critical to us as residents. And it's clear that the demographic study has been done. It hasn't been shared with us, as we talked about. It's my understanding it hasn't been shared with board members either, of their board, which is, unsettling. The last word that we had, George, was that the staff didn't agree with the results, and they asked us to use the last study, which is over 10 years old, for the impact fees, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I can only speculate as to the reason, but logically, it leads me to believe that the report shows declining enrollment that wouldn't justify an increase in impact fees. And I'm not sure what it would justify for the 5 schools because we haven't seen it. Regardless of any of that, I think the staffs of 135 and D230 have intentionally kept pertinent information from their boards while their boards are making important decisions, to say the least. That concerns me, for sure. as a resident, but as an elected official, that's unacceptable. But with that said, our job is not to weigh in on that tonight. Our job is to vote on the approval of plan relative to our laws and ordinance and not override decisions that we may deem as unsubstantiated. Again, it's apples and oranges, the impact fees and this particular matter. So our job's to vote on the plan in front of us, and we don't have an oversight role over those boards. Those boards are elected by our residents, and it's their job to provide that oversight role. So that's my position. So personally, I would vote no to table this, and I would also vote yes on the matter. That's my personal opinion.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani.
I had some similar, concerns as Trustee Healy, and I agree with you as well. I mean, we shouldn't be weighing that as part of our decision, but, the things we've gone through as far as, with the cultural center and turning that down, and then not having the demographic study is a key to a lot of this. But, so I'm concerned of what the actual needs were, are the classrooms overcrowded, so it's really, why are we doing this? Because it's really, the taxpayers that are going to be footing the bill for this eventually, even though we don't have direct control over it. So knowing that we don't have the demographic study, and I think that would help us understand the need a little better, I just wanted to comment that those are my concerns, and I agree here that I would vote no to table this as well, so.
Any other comments? Call the roll on the motion to table.
Trustee Healy. Aye. Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
No.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Reardon.
No.
Trustee Radiszewski.
No.
Mayor Pico.
No. So the motion to table fails 5-2. And now back to the matter at hand. I know we commented on that as well. Are there any more comments on?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, just, you said we're going to see 5 more of these, so is this, every one of these schools is planning an expansion of some sort?
Yes. Yeah, District 135 has 5. I believe the other 4 are coming in one night. Yeah. So Planning Commission's been meeting weekly to catch up on some of these things.
I guess my question or my comment is it's just a zoning issue right now, but if this out there demographic study that we don't know what it says or anything, this could become our issue later. If the schools aren't filled, if they're talking about what we're going to do with this land and what we're going to do with these buildings. I mean, it doesn't look like that now. I think we're, plenty of students in the buildings now, but I'm just not sure of their process of how they got to the point where they're needing to put additions on each of these schools without the backdrop and the, support for it. Just my comment, I guess, so.
And I can say that I don't watch every one of their meetings, so I don't know, and I certainly don't have all that internal information. And, that's something that, that elected body has to answer to the residents for. You're right, we're all residents, so it concerns us all, right? It
Wouldn't
concerns
you
us
be
all.
touting it? I mean, if you're doing these additions, wouldn't you be touting the report that says, look, we're going to need this in the next 10 years, we're going to need this, we're going to need this? So don't
I
know.
would, tonight what we're discussing, so yes, I would, but that's just me. Any other comments? Okay, call the roll on approving the construction or the zoning and of the Prairie School with the conditions that were laid out by our Planning Commission.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye, yes.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
No.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Mayor Pico.
Aye, motion carries 6-1.
Fernway Park Elementary School renovations.
Let's backtrack. George, do we have presentations yet? If we do,
Well, we're gonna go back
I'll
to
entertain a
5
motion to remove from the table
Second.
the capital improvement plan. Call the roll.
Sean, did Sean mention that?
Yes.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski. Aye. Mayor Peacock.
Aye. And first, I will let everyone know who may be watching this, we apologize for the technical issues that we're having here. We will make sure that these slides are available via a link, as well as we will get them embedded into the video within the next couple of days. However, I will also say there's not a whole lot of data in here. Most of it will be talked about verbally, so there's very little data. There's some pictures of some of the projects, and I think there's 2 or 3 graphs, so there's not a lot.
So, Mr. Mayor, Nabia did mention that although they're not showing up on our screens, they can display them on the internet and on the cable channel.
Okay.
So they'll be able to see it, and then the board will be able to see it on the paper.
Okay, great.
So, so for the past few months, the village has undertaken an effort to develop a 5-year capital improvement plan and corresponding financial plan. This evening, the draft capital improvement plan and corresponding financial plan, which can be found online in Legistar, is being introduced in order to provide at least 3 weeks of public review. As the board is aware, a budget is split into 2 main parts, the operating budget and the capital budget. The operating budget contains estimates of the total resources expected to come into the village and the total appropriations to fund village services, whereas the capital budget contains the same regarding capital improvement projects. Examples of capital improvement projects include village infrastructure projects, IT, rolling stock. The capital improvement budget also displays the anticipated funding sources and financing plan for the projects.
And what should also be noted here is that we are not approving a budget. We are also not finally approving next year's capital plan. This is our 5-year strategic plan, so it's a little bit, it will modify and change on a year-to-year basis slightly, but this is, the information in here is what is necessary to make the, have the discussion tonight and also make the decision on whether or not to move forward with some of these revenue recommendations, which have to be done early enough to actually enact them.
That's correct. So we're on the challenges slide right now. So as we undertook this plan, we started a review of our major challenges that we face over the next 5 years, and then how they would impact our mission. And specifically, we were looking at our finances and capital programs. So some of the challenges that we have to overcome are state and federal unfunded mandates. Everybody's aware of those types of mandates that come down. Revenue diversions from the state. Future state budget crisis. So let me go back and I'll talk a little bit about the revenue diversions from the state. LGDF, by this point, the board and the public are probably aware that a number of years back, the state reduced the allocation to municipalities of LGDF, which is income tax. Had they not done that back in 2011, the village over those years would have received $45.7 million. So that another example of these state revenue diversions is ARPA funding. The village was the lowest per capita receiver of ARPA funds when they were coming out. So the village received 2.9 million, should have been much more than that.
And just so everyone knows, we were the lowest in the entire state per capita. So, and I think Chicago received 7 times more than what we received. So as we've talked about before, they, the federal government in this case, and all of our congressmen at the time, deemed that the people of Chicago were worth 7 times more than the people of Orland Park. I mean, they put a number on it. So it's pretty significant.
Another challenge we have to overcome is that there will be a future state budget crisis. when we talked about LGDF diversions, that was done purportedly to assist the state during a previous budget crisis. The state is currently in a decent financial position because of the COVID relief money that it's been receiving. However, Chicago Cranes announced that the revenue that the state received in April already shows that that is wearing off. So the state will be back in a future budget crisis, which may mean more diversions from local governments. A recent stress test conducted by Moody's Investor Services found that most states are well prepared to financially preserve through a recession. Illinois is not one of those states. The report found Illinois to be among the least prepared to handle even a moderate recession. So if they've done it before, they'll do it again, and they will divert revenue sources from municipalities. And another challenge that we have to overcome are pension costs. In 2011, the state General Assembly approved Tier 2 pensions, a Tier 2 pension system. What that means is that anybody that started working in a pension system after January 1st, 2011 in a state was automatically put into as a Tier 2 employee. The Tier 2 pension recipients receive less benefits, and they have to work longer in order to get the pension. These were modest changes to the pension code. The state is now discussing the possibility, and already has proposed, there has been proposed legislation to even out or equal out Tier 2 with Tier 1. There's a lot of savings to municipalities, to the state with a Tier 2 system. By evening that out, all those savings would go away.
And George, if you don't mind my interrupting, to put it in perspective, and we have Tier 2 and Tier 1 right now, so we have a mixture. Our IMRF employees, we pay 14.1% into IMRF, plus Social Security as well, so that's 20.3% towards their retirement benefits. For our police, it's 41.5% of their salary goes into pension benefits. And Tier 2 is approximately the cost to the village are approximately 40% less than a Tier 1 employee because of the changes that were made.
Yep. Another challenge we have is backlog and future capital improvement projects. It's really kind of the gist of why we undertook this. A few years back, the board provided the means for staff to begin comprehensive assessments throughout the organization, throughout the community. Those assessments included an ADA transition plan, parks assessment report, a risk management plan, fleet assessment study, water risk and resiliency assessment, stormwater master plan, a water rate study, village facilities space utilization study, public works site master plan, a road, sidewalk, path maintenance and reconstruction program, parks master plan, and water and sewer infrastructure capacity. All of these assessments were foundational documents as we built this capital improvement plan. The projects that we talk about in the capital improvement plan are, at this point, are needs and they're not wants. Some other challenges are legacy costs. There are some projects that the village has inherited that are quite substantial, and those have been factored into the 5-year capital improvement program. Orland Park Health and Fitness has $6 million in capital improvements over the next 5 years. With regard to Tinley Creek, the village has to contribute $2.8 million towards those improvements. The Dr. Marsh IDNR grant is resulting in a little over $500,000 from the village. And the Heritage Sites strategic plan requires 1.5 million from the village.
George, the heritage sites, is that for 1 year or is that for the whole 5?
That's for the whole 5.
Including this year, because I thought Bowley Farm, we're putting a couple million in total in.
No, that is the total cost for the 3 sites.
Okay.
Then, the other challenge that we're all facing is higher prices as a result of inflation and supply chain. It's unknown when that will get mitigated. There's conflicting reports about whether the Fed will continue raising interest rates. But the reality is, and we see this with the bid results that we're doing, we're seeing much larger pricing because of that. Another challenge is the inevitable recession. And all of these are kind of tied together. If the recession hits, and then we'll be impacted by that. But there won't be a corresponding decrease in service requirements. If we have a cool, wet summer, we sell less water. If we have a harsh winter, our cost for providing snow and ice control rises. Freeze-thaw cycles tend to produce water main breaks. Water line freezes during the winter months and must be de-thawed. The need for police services and property maintenance complaints tend to increase as citizens grapple with increasing difficult circumstances. So recession will impact our revenue, but it will not have a positive impact on reducing our service requirements. So those are some of the challenges, but we have wonderful opportunities in this community as well. Some of the opportunities that we have is we have an incredible public safety departments, especially our police department. People locate their businesses and they move to Orland Park because of the safety that they're afforded. And so we want to enhance our public safety services. Orland Park is an attractive place to live, work, and play. And we see that with the number of vacancies we have in our businesses and how how businesses continue to choose Orland Park. We have a very low property tax. Our property tax as a percentage of a homeowner's bill is 6.2%. Most of the property tax collected actually goes towards the educational institutions. As part of our proposed plan, we would further reduce property tax. As we're going through and looking at our revenue options, we wanted to see how we can enhance revenue, but at the same time transfer some of the revenue burden to non-residents. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Another great thing about our organization is our strong financial stewardship. The village is only a handful of communities throughout the nation who are Triple Crown awarded communities, meaning they receive the audit, the budget, and the budget summary awards. And we will continue to do that because we take our role as financial stewards very seriously. Another opportunity is we want to plan for self-sufficiency. We know that the state is not going to be kind to us when it comes to state revenues. And matter of fact, we'll probably lose some more revenues if times get tough. So we want to be in a position where we can continue to provide and meet our mission going into the future. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to move from debt to fund capital to a pay-as-you-go model. We do have a backlog of capital that we do have to accomplish, but eventually we want to get to a point where we can actually set aside money into our capital improvement program into the fund, and then pay as you go and do those projects that way.
Mr. Mayor? Can I
Trustee
comment
Healy.
now, or should
Sure,
I?
trustee Hugh.
I'd like to remind you that we live in the state of Illinois, where there's a lot of fat government budgets out there. And it's a rhetorical question. Why should we be cutting our budgets, living frugally, prudently, having good financial stewardship? Not, I don't see any, with this plan, I don't see any waste or anything. When we've seen that the attendance at schools are going down, presumably, it's my opinion, that shouldn't their budgets go down? We see the libraries there's some to cut there, there's some to cut at the township. The fire department is rife with overthink. These are my opinions. Yet we're going against that trend, and the stuff we cut, taxpayers can expect their bills to keep going up, and there's really not much more we can do if we put this into place. I just want to make that comment that we're being frugal, and I wish I saw other people, but this is Illinois. We're working against a trend. Thanks.
So our capital improvement program, our current year, 5-year CIP totals $198 million and represents capital investments in all areas of the organization. So we include technology, vehicles and equipment, building maintenance. A big portion is going into building maintenance because of the deferral of maintenance on them. Centennial Pool, facilities, our historic sites. We owe IDOT money, and they owe us money, so it's kind of a wash. Park development, parking lots, parks master plan, paths and sidewalks, police, playgrounds and pavilions, and roads. So the almost $200 million capital improvement program over the next 5 years really touches upon all elements of our community, and it makes a big dent into the backlog of capital improvement projects that are outstanding.
And George, I'm going to jump in for a minute, just so people that are here in particular, but also those of you who are online. So approximately $95 million, roughly half of that, is for roads or sidewalks or so, but road related. 56 million of that is buildings, and that includes about 22 million building maintenance and 34 million for some facilities. And that includes George is going to talk about that shortly. It's $32 million for parks, of which we've already approved about 20 million of that. And then $9 million for vehicles, because as we know from about a year or two, anyone who was here, that our average vehicle age was 14 years. So we really need to get our vehicles back up to, they're just too old. I mean, we just have to get on a more regular maintenance, a regular plan with those. And all of these things get us to a point in 5 years where we're on a regular capital improvement plan instead of having this big giant backlog that was left. Puts us best in class in roads. It puts our parks back to instead of spending like we have been, it allows us to bring that back to more of a normal level and keep everything in place and not have this big giant backlog. So that's important to note.
That's right. Some of the facility improvements is a new firing range, emergency operations center, and training facility for the police department. Our police department, I mentioned this before, and everybody agrees, is probably the best police department in the state. And the training requirements that they have are incredible. And what we're proposing is a facility that will even further enhance their abilities right here in Orland Park.
And one of the questions may be, why is this a need, not a want? Well, our police firing range is actually, we deemed it unsafe, and we've actually shut it down. So right now, our police don't really have a place to train. So we need to get this facility to keep them best in class. We're working around it right now, but this is going to be actually the first project that kicks off is this one next year. So we can make sure that they continue to get the training that they need to stay the best in the state.
And after that police range is built out, it has a cascading effect on our facilities. Once the police range and the impound lot are moved, then we can start work on our public works facility. We have the oldest part of our public works facility. Joel, is how old? Old. It's old. We have a portion of our old garage that I believe is something like 90 years old or something crazy
It's
like
part of the old village hall, so it's older than me.
that. Yeah.
You're not 90.
I'm not 90, but it's older than me.
Yeah. So the cascading effect, when we go from firing range to public works, and then we would end up closing down the museum, the old Village Hall building. That requires $1 million just to maintain it for the next 5 years. So when that's closed, we would move everybody into the rec admin building, but it needs a lot of money, needs a lot of work to get it prepped for that. So over the next 5 years, little by little, we will be able to get rid of a lot of inefficiencies and make a number of enhancements that are sorely needed.
And a few things to add on that is on the Public Works facility, the changes that we made there. One, the building is at that point of its life where it needs to be updated. We've gotten a lot bigger, so it's going to allow us to move a lot of our vehicles inside and keep them for longer and keep them in better shape, which is important. Also, all of our diesels for snow plowing, you don't want them sitting outside because the diesels they could gel and then not be able to be used. So we need to keep them inside for that. So that allows all that to happen. And additionally, the recreation, if you think about it, it's the old police station. And the whole bottom part of the old police station are cells and the the current EOC that we have all of that in there. And it's really not very usable. So this will allow us to gut all of that and make it available for storage. Then we have a number of outlying buildings that are no longer used except for storage. They also need maintenance. Now, fortunately, most of them at this point don't need maintenance yet, but they will in the next 4 or 5 years. So the idea is to get everything in our storage into, all of our rec storage into one place so that all of those outlying buildings can then just be taken down so we don't have to continue to maintain them. So there's a long-term plan to just consolidate things inside, and it all starts with obviously a very needed police firing range to keep our officers trained.
So the existing revenue streams are insufficient to undertake the CIP as proposed. The total shortfall without new revenue is $126 million. So we have our revenue sources can maintain our operations and some capital, but it cannot do all of the capital that is part of the capital improvement program. So in order to proceed with the capital improvement program, new revenue sources are needed. There are a number of alternate revenue sources that have been listed in the report that's online as well as in this PowerPoint. There's this one is a staff proposed, staff recommended, is the electricity and natural gas tax. That is a tax on utilities. It is a very common tax. In our report, we have all of the municipalities that maintain that right now. It's estimated that the utility tax would generate approximately $3.5 million annually. And all of this revenue would be earmarked for capital costs, including the construction of the indoor firing range, training center, and EOC. As an offset, staff is proposing, and to beginning immediately, the elimination of the vehicle sticker program. The vehicle sticker program has been in place for many years, and we know anecdotally and by other reports that it's an uneven tax. There are many vehicles in Orland that don't pay the vehicle sticker. So instead of trying to have a a heavy hand to try to get compliance, we would eliminate the vehicle sticker and instead put in place the utility tax. Another alternate revenue is, that's an option. We don't have to, that's just one of the options. Another way to generate revenue is to increase the vehicle sticker. If we did that, we would generate, if we doubled the sticker fee, we would generate $400,000 per year. Another alternate revenue is a home rule sales tax increase. This is a staff-recommended revenue. It's estimated that a half-point increase of the home rule sales tax would generate approximately $7.6 million annually. The revenue would be dedicated totally to fund projects in the capital improvement plan, and then it would actually set us up to get to a pay-as-you-go capital financing in the future after we've met our backlog. As an offset, the village would implement a policy that would result in property taxes being reduced so that ultimately the village's portion of a resident's property tax bill would not account for more than 5% of the bill. Currently, it's 6.2%. Then we would set that ceiling at 5% of the bill, which is still very, very small portion of a property tax bill.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
when's the last time that we adjusted the home rule sales tax?
So the home rule sales tax was adopted,
When it was first adopted was the only time we've ever done it. It was adopted, went from 0 to 0.75% somewhere around 2001.
And then it's never been touched since.
Never been touched since.
that's correct.
And that's one of the ones we're talking about where we're transferring at least a decent portion of it to non-residents. Because that sales tax, that's cars that are bought here, food at the mall, right?
Over 60%
Yep.
6% is non-resident.
is non-resident,
And we haven't touched it since when?
since we haven't touched it since 2001. And it doesn't apply to title goods, so it doesn't apply to cars.
Oh, it doesn't apply to cars, okay.
It does not apply to cars, but it applies to or groceries or pharmaceuticals. So none of those things.
Yeah.
So it was implemented in 2002, and at that time, it was implemented at 0.75. We are recommending a half-point increase. And as the mayor mentioned, this does not impact titled goods, so it would not impact cars, motorcycles, and the like. This would generate $7.6 million annually, and it would be a very important part of our capital improvement funding.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani?
And to go back to that tax, reading through the plan, I believe, I just wanted to bring this up. Since 60% of that is non-residents, I believe the average effect on the resident would be about $4 to $5 a month, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Was the average. So, a very minimal amount.
Yes, and we'll get to there as far as actual impacts to residents, but you're correct. It's about $4 a month.
Okay.
Other alternate revenue sources is a local motor fuel tax. This is the state has a motor fuel tax that whenever we go to the pump, we can impose, as a home rule municipality, we can impose a local one. That would generate approximately $800,000 if we did. Another option is an amusement tax, and this varies. We really don't have a lot of places that would, be a draw for us as far as generating this type of revenue. We're estimating about $200,000. Another option is a stamp tax, a transfer tax. The state law has changed on that. In order to implement a transfer tax, you have to do it via referendum. So it's something that's not recommended. Another option is to fund the capital improvement program via property tax bonds. So if we wanted to do the the delta, the difference between what we have and what we need, it would be about $355 per $200,000 home to fund that. So those are some of the alternate options. The,
One you didn't mention was the food and beverage, basically the restaurant tax, which is 4.8 million. And just so that the board knows, because the previous board, previous to anyone here except for me, there was a big push to do this and an effort to do this. And there was an economic study done, and it would basically, our restaurant business would get crushed. So in the end, it would cause a significant loss to economic activity. The other problem with this particular tax is we have to collect it. So we have to put people in place to collect this particular tax and manage it, which is also costly, so.
it's costly, and then we have to audit, and it becomes very problematic. The local MFT is also that type of tax where we would have to implement that locally.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
can I ask Trustee Katsinas a question about the transfer tax? Are we one of the only ones in the area that don't have that? I mean, and I know there's different ways of doing it, like when people sell homes, so they're leaving Orland and having a transfer tax that we collect that way, opposed to when they're coming into Orland, not charging it. I've only bought a house or two in my life, but isn't the transfer tax, can't you do it one way or the other?
That is correct, and I believe in the city of Chicago, they do that. You leave, when you're leaving, you have a tax to pay, and when you're incoming, you have a tax. But in our immediate market area, if you get out east, there are communities typically, that have more issues with funding that do a transfer tax. But just talking about it is probably going to ruffle a lot of feathers in the Realtor community. So I definitely would be against a transfer tax, buying or selling at this point, when there's other revenue streams that are available, and especially when they're predominantly, off the backs of the residents on our visitors. But a transfer tax, very few communities in our immediate area do that.
That's what I thought. That's why I'm kind of with you, that we wouldn't want to have it unless everyone else is
Absolutely
doing
not.
it, and it's like the last resort type of kind of thing.
Right.
Okay.
And it would also, this is one of them that would require referendum approval.
Okay.
So of these, staff's recommendation is the utility tax. The average residential custom bill would increase $12.55 per month. And we also would recommend a home rule sales tax. This is with an estimated 60% of sales tax paid by non-residents. Orland Park residents would pay an estimated $4.22 per month. As I'd mentioned, we would reduce property taxes to hit that 5% threshold, and we would eliminate vehicle stickers immediately. So the results of the recommendations are that we will become more self-sufficient. We'd be able to fund our capital needs. We'd enhance public safety, and we would maintain adequate fund reserves. Now, some of the, and I just to kind of summarize some of the capital projects, we would do the police training facility. We'd update the public works garages and revamp the vehicle fleet. Water redundancy and water main systems. It's water security, and we have a great program that's going into place right now. Local roads, as the mayor mentioned, would be best in class, allowing for future spending. Our previously deferred capital projects, sidewalks, roads, and buildings would be complete. We would meet our ADA compliance requirements. We'd have major park upgrades, including John Humphrey, Centennial West, Schussler, and Dugan Park. Self-sufficient, less reliant on the state, and we would be positioned to move to a pay-as-you-go model. So our next steps, it's anticipated that the draft plan, which again is on our website under Legistar, is available for review for the next 3 weeks. And then at the June 5th Board of Trustees meeting, we would propose the adoption of the capital improvement plan and then adopt the corresponding ordinances. And then collections for the utility taxes would happen in the fourth quarter of '23. The home rule sales tax would start January 1, 2024.
Any comments other than the ones you've made already? So I'll make a few real quick, and then we'll move to a vote. So keep in mind, when I arrived here in 2017, the fund balance was projected to be minus 8% this year. We were going to blow through our fund balances. We had a 35% fund balance. It was going to be minus 8%. That had been projected since 2012, and there was no action being taken. And what it has become, so this year it's at, I think, 48% is what it's at. And we're able to use 17 million of that towards these capital projects and still stay above our funding thing. So it was really great work by this board to do everything we can operationally to make ourselves more efficient. We have done a phenomenal job of that. But there's no more juice we can squeeze out of this orange. We caught up on a ton of capital. We doubled our spending on roads and parks, a lot more on our vehicles. Some of the members of this board took a lot of heat for that. As I recall, some of you were accused of committing crimes for spending more money on our roads. We also, as George pointed out, we did a lot of assessments to develop a fact base for this so we could make educated decisions. We didn't just shoot from the hip and just pull this out of nowhere. I mean, we know what our capital needs are. We've assessed everything. We've had our buildings assessed. We know what's out there and what's been left behind. There's a lot of work, as George said, there's, over $120 million, which is unfunded. As he also mentioned, the LGDF, $46 million that we didn't get, plus a projected 28 million more, because I doubt they're going to give it back to us. So that's 74 million bucks. Think about that towards the 126. It would completely change this conversation. There's also unfunded mandates like body cams, PTO for part-timers, minimum wage. They keep adding prevailing wage requirements to maintenance, which makes it very costly to maintain things. For simple things like changing light bulbs and things like that are the things they're talking about doing, and there's more of that coming. Also, frankly, previous to us, so probably the 15 years prior to us, here's some of the things that we did that, some big decisions, some are debatable. I think there's a couple that are not, that they were just bad decisions. We have a $31 million loss on the triangle to date. What have we received for that? Well, we received 296 unit apartment building, which we put 64 million into, by the way. We took all the risk. And I can tell you from being here for the last 6 years, we can build apartments in Orland anytime we want, and we don't have to incentivize or take the risk. Everyone wants to build apartments. I think George would nod his head to that because we see it all the time. Also, University of Chicago, which is a non-for-profit, they were coming here. So we would have gotten them anyway. So there was nothing beneficial there. So we've lost $31 million there. The other thing is, for those of you who've lived here for a while, we had $39 million in property tax rebates after that sales tax was put in place. $39 million in property tax rebates over 14 years. Every year that we gave a rebate, we borrowed to give it to you. Rough math, conservatively, $18 million in interest costs for that decision. So that for that $150 check you got every year, it cost us about $57 million. So right there, that's $88 million. Again, 88 and 74. Our capital program is done, and we've got money sitting there to already be pay-as-you-go. Then you throw in things like Tinley Creek, the delay on that, which is several $1 million. That could have been done in 2014. We didn't do it. And now the costs have gone up, and MWRD won't pick up those costs, so we've had to pick up those costs. LaGrange Road, we spent $17 million, I believe, on landscaping. Now, we can argue that some of that landscaping was, good to beautify that. 17 million, given all the other things we deferred, like roads, probably not the wisest thing. Orland Health and Fitness. George mentioned what we have upcoming, but we also have already spent money. So since we acquired Orland Health and Fitness a year before I arrived here, we're going to spend almost $14 million in capital improvements for Orland Health and Fitness to get it up to speed. Because Payless knew they were getting rid of it, so they didn't put any money into it. So that's 14. Now, there's an argument to be made that $14 million to get an indoor pool and get all that stuff, maybe it was worth it. But the fact is, no one did the due diligence to know this was going to cost us this. It was just, let's do it for political purposes, and then we'll deal with the costs later. At least if you know, you can have a debate and decide whether or not to do it. But there's no question the rebates and the triangle, that's $88 million that we just tossed out the window. So, and like I said, we've made a lot of hard decisions here on this board, but we just can't simply, we just simply can't squeeze any more out of it. The only thing we could do is make major cuts to service or irresponsibly ignore our capital needs, which was done before, and I don't think we can do that. We haven't been doing that, and that's not something for me that's an option. So unfortunately, it does mean an increase in revenue, which none of us want to do. And again, I go back to the state and the decisions we made, that basically covers that cost, but that's not where we're at. So we have to put the future boards in a position where they can pay as you go. So we have to make the hard decisions now. I think additionally, well, one, doing this with a fact base that we developed was critical. I mean, this is what it really costs. We know what it is because we developed that fact base. But it was also important that we not only catch up on our capital, but that we are able to continue to maintain it and eventually move to that pay-as-you-go model. We also wanted to base more of our revenue on usage, which the utility tax does and the sales tax does, and shift the burden away from our residents and our property owners to visitors, which this does that as well. So I think these options accomplish those goals, and I really want to thank staff for all their hard work to put this together. And with that, I will move to call the roll.
Trustee Healy. Aye. Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
Fernway Park Elementary School renovations.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
I move to recommend to the village board the Plan Commission recommended action as presented in the staff report regarding case number 2022-0853, also known as Fernway Elementary renovations.
Second.
Are there any comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
I'd like to, given the thoughts from Brian and everybody else on the board for, which we had before on that first, it's on Prairie Elementary, on Fernway, we've got the same thing, so I'm just.
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you. Fernway is not the same thing. Fernway is a different school district.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They set some money aside, and they also had a referendum of their district voters to approve the spending for this particular school, and the school's old. So they're replacing the entire school.
I'm sorry, that sounds responsible.
So, yes. So that's why I wanted to interrupt you. It's not exactly the same thing. It's a little different.
Well, that's all I wanted to say, they're responsible, so, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments? So I'm going to make some comments here about the Fernway School just because I happen to be aware and watched the Planning Commission a little bit. And actually, I showed up and listened to it from back there rather than stepping in. But yeah, I'm aware that our neighboring mayor of Orland Hills came to our Planning Commission meeting, asked them to table this, which would thereby not approve the new school. He said his engineers don't agree with our plan or with the school's plan. First, it's not the school's job to mitigate poor planning from West Haven, from a West Haven subdivision that's now an Orland Hills subdivision. They are only responsible for managing their own water, not neighbors' water, which our engineers and MWRD and their engineers say that they do. So all of those engineers, everyone that's looked at it, as well as the school's engineers, our village engineers and MWRD all says it meets the current requirements, which are much more stringent than they were in the past. Second, though, it really floors me that a mayor who's building not one, but 2 drug dens, one of which is very close to 2 schools, would be against a new school for the students in his town. And it's not even in his town, it's in our town, but it's for all of the students in his town go to it. So since this school also educates the students that reside in Orland, as well as Tinley Park, I find that to be unacceptable. I wholeheartedly support this project and building a new school for the children of Orland Park, Tinley Park and Orland Hills. Call a roll.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
Any non-scheduled citizens or visitors?
Any non-scheduled citizens or visitors want to speak? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call a roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye. We're adjourned. Give us 5 minutes and we'll start the board meeting.